Everyone has a story to tell. We connect and relate to one another when we share our stories. My name is Amelia Old, and I am your host of Voices of Inspiration. Join me as I share stories of friends, family, and strangers from my everyday life and travels. You will laugh, possibly cry, or walk away feeling connected more than ever to those around you and ready to be the change our world needs. Everyone has a story to tell. What's yours? Our guest today is a true trailblazer in the world of craft brewing. Robert Young is the first Black brewer in Augusta, Georgia, and the owner and head brewer of Tapped 33 Craft Brewery. Robert's passion for brewing began as a hobby and quickly turned into a dream of starting his own brewery. With hard work and dedication, he has made that dream a reality. Robert's story is one of perseverance, creativity, and the power of pursuing one's passions. He has overcome many obstacles to bring Tapped 33 to life. Join us as Robert shares his journey from home brewing to becoming an assistant brewer at Savannah River Brewing Company and finally launching Tapped 33. He also discusses his approach to brewing, the unique flavors and techniques he incorporates into his beers, and his commitment to diversity and community. I'm honored to have Robert join us to share his story and insights into the world of craft brewing. Whether you're a craft beer aficionado or just love a good success story, this episode is not to be missed. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning.
You are the owner of Tapped 33 Craft Brewery. What inspired you to become a brewer? Like, how did your love for beer develop?
Yeah, that's a good question. It started when I was in the Navy and traveling overseas. I went to Germany and Prague and fell in love with the beer culture in Germany and Prague. Visited the Pilsner Urquell's brewery in Prague, and Pilsner, like, it's a very common beer now, but that's where it originated in Plitzen, which is the name of the city. So the actual beer is named after the city in a way. And I went there to the brewery and had an unpasteurized, unfiltered Pilsner. And I had an aha moment, like, what is this? Like, it was like the best thing I ever tasted. And paired with the food and everything like that, and then the atmosphere and the environment, I was like, this is amazing. And so I got back to the States, and I'm always a hobbyist. I'm always looking for things to get myself into, and I wanted to learn how to make beer. And so I started hobbying as a home brewer, making beer and trying to perfect the craft, just making a decent beer to drink. At first, it was kind of hard because it's a steep learning curve, but I fell in love with just the art of making beer and the science behind it. And I was able to continue moving forward with that thought process. And Augusta didn't have a brewery at that time. And so I thought that would be a great opportunity as an entrepreneur to open up a brewery here.
Well, first of all, thank you for your service.
No problem.
You were born and raised in Atlanta, correct?
Yes. Yep.
So I actually lived in Atlanta for like 6 years. I'm originally from Georgia. I live in the Carolinas now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm really familiar with Atlanta. After your service, what made you settle into Augusta?
So yeah, that was actually pretty cool because I could have always moved back to Atlanta, and I love Atlanta. It's like my favorite city. But I saw that there was an opportunity here in Augusta, and instead of traveling to Atlanta every weekend, I was like, well, how about if I bring Atlanta to Augusta? And so the things that Augusta doesn't have, or the things that Atlanta has or Augusta doesn't, I was like, well, we have an opportunity here to make this city a great city. And so that's just what my mission is, and what I'm trying to do is offer the city of Augusta things that people will leave Augusta to go find and do. So I just wanted to bring it here. So
what did your friends and family say when you were like, I'm going to brew beer?
Friends are always excited about that. Family,
sure.
Yeah, exactly.
They probably want to be your taste tester.
Yeah, family not so much. They were okay with it, but they were just like beer. And it's very interesting because in the Black community, we drink beer, but craft beer is not really a big thing. So, and it's growing now, but there's a lot of education that still needs to happen, and a lot of advertisement that needs to happen that this is a thing that Black people do, and that our community would like. And so there was a lot of education for the family, just trying to teach them about different beer styles, teach them about different tastes, And so they're learning and they're growing with me and they're enjoying that process as well. So, but the friends, they were all down for it. They were free.
I imagine so. Now especially being in the Navy, you've traveled extensively. How did all of that, you talked about it a little bit, but how did all of that influence your brewing style?
It influenced my brewing style because I wanted to stay true to the original styles of beer. And so, going to Germany and having true German beer, going to Prague, going to Italy, being in Europe and having these like true to style beers, I realized that, the American craft is they go out to the extreme and they try to make these weird, funky beers, keep evolving and stuff like that. But I wanted to still stay true to style. And so while I'll make the crazy styles and do some weird, funky stuff, I definitely want to create good, solid base beers. If you want a good Pilsner, I'll make different. If you want a good Munich Helles, I'll make a good Munich Helles or a good English brown ale, So I want to stay true to those because I think you don't have those in the craft industry as much. And so, that's my passion in educating people about beer as well.
Now, before you opened your own business, you were involved with Savannah River Brewing. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So it's been a beautiful collaboration with them. I started out, they knew that I was a home brewer in the local area. And so they allowed me to come in and volunteer with them. And I was able to volunteer for a couple of Oktoberfest and bring my own recipes, and they would put it on tap. People get to try it. And they knew that my end goal is to open up a brewery of my own. And so they allowed me to come in and volunteer with the batches that they did. And eventually it got to the point where they're like, we actually need some help and we would love to hire you on as an assistant brewer if you're wanting that position. And I was like, yeah, I definitely want that time to get me more experience in the industry on the professional side instead of just being a home brewer. And so I started working for them and it's been a beautiful journey with them. And they allowed me to work as an assistant brewer and then eventually create my first batch. And that's in distribution now.
I think that's really cool because I feel like not all businesses would just allow someone to come in and spend that kind of time with them, especially knowing that your end goal was to essentially have like competition, right?
Right, exactly. And so that's the beauty of the craft brewing industry. I think it's a very unique industry compared to any other business, right? Because I've been all over to every brewery. Once you let them know, hey, I'm a brewer, they open their arms and they open the doors and they'll welcome you in and give you like trade secrets and like understand, this is what you need to know for this. I was originally in the mentorship program for the Brewers Association. They have a mentorship program for diversity, equity, and inclusion, and basically just exposing people of different diverse backgrounds to the industry and to mentors that allows you to do a little bit more knowledge base that you might not have gotten otherwise because you might not be in an area where you can actually access those kind of people. And so I did that this past fall and it allowed me to get way more access and understanding and knowledge to the industry on top of working with Savannah River as well. So
what do you think have been some of like your biggest challenges through this?
Some of my biggest challenges were honestly understanding how to build the equity up for capital. And so that's a big challenge, going out to investor meetings, talking with investors and just learning that process of like building capital and trying to source capital. And that's a big thing that I didn't understand at first. And when you want to start a business, the dream, it's like, this is what I want to see happen. But then you have to go out and get the money for it and make that happen. And so that was a big learning curve for me. And then also, I think being black in this industry, a lot of people test me as far as my knowledge base, try to get me to prove that I actually know what I'm talking about because they just don't see that often. And so when you see a black guy brewing beer, you're like, oh, that's different. But can he really brew beer? Or can he really start a brewery and stuff like that. And so I noticed that was one of the things that I had to overcome in this industry. Even when I met my lawyer for the first time, he knew me by name or by email, but when I met him in person, he was like, "Oh," I was like, "Yeah." I wasn't expecting you to be Black. And I was like, "Yeah, I am." And, it's just a different time now. And so, yeah, I think those are the biggest challenges.
In what ways do you think the craft beer industry can do a better job of recognizing and celebrating diversity and inclusivity?
Yeah, I think we are actually starting to do really well with that. I know the Brewers Association, they are gung ho as far as trying to do everything they can to highlight diversity and inclusion. I think the craft beer industry because if you think about the craft beer movement, it's pretty liberal in the sense of you're battling the big giants of the beer world, Budweiser, the Miller, of course, and stuff like that. And so by nature of being the little guy, you have to fight for all the other little guys too out there. And so I think that helps, but it's still an industry dominated by white men. And so I think there's a lot of learning that still has to be done with that. And so I think we're doing a really good job. I think there's definitely more work we can do. Even at the brewery that I work at now, I do have to educate sometimes about different things like, you can't say that or do that or think that way because it's going to make somebody else feel this way. Even when it comes down to Juneteenth being a national holiday, it's like, well, we'll celebrate everything else, but are we going to celebrate that? That's now a holiday that we think we celebrate, which doesn't like it. And I think it's all about education. Like I said, there's a big diaspora of Black people in the country that drink beer. They might not be fucking craft beer. How they come to a brewery and it's nothing like they know. It doesn't look like anything that they're used to. So, which is educating and trying to get cultural representation, the industry that allows other ethnic groups, other people to just feel welcome.
What advice would you give to aspiring brewers, especially those that might not see themselves represented in the industry?
Like what I give, read a lot and read everything because there's so much to learn. So for a brewer, somebody that's passionate about making beer, we're learning all the science behind it, the art, the craft of making beer. But then if you're trying to start a business, you can learn the business side of things. So you need to learn the financial aspect. You can learn the advertising and marketing aspect. You can running a business, what does the P&L look like, And so there's just a lot of different hats you'll have to look here and a lot of different things you'll have to know. You don't have to know it all, but you definitely can know, or have a network of people that you can call, have the answers that you might need. And so I think that's one of the biggest things I would tell an aspiring brewer, start to build that network of people that have those knowledge that you might not have, that you can kind of lean on or reach out to and say, hey, what do I do in this situation? Or what's the answer to this question right here? And I think once you build that network, it does wonders for telling you forward.
Yeah. Now, networking is definitely key in any industry.
In any industry, yeah, I agree. And like even some for a brewer or one that doesn't look like the status for a white male, I would say don't be afraid of being yourself. We have something to offer to the industry and to the culture of beer. Beer is a cultural based product, always been since day one, just an exception. And so as long as you still yourself and your culture and beer, I think it'll go further.
How would you describe the craft beer scene in Augusta?
It is a beer desert here. We don't really have one. We have 2 breweries aside from mine coming out, and there's not a big craft scene yet. So that's one of my goals. That's one of the Together River's goals, is to create that scene, create that environment. We're the second largest city by population in Georgia. And then we have a big booming master week of people that come in. We have the ability to support more brewing in the area. So it just comes down to people coming in and investing into the city and investing in the downtown area and the downtown government accepting it and putting laws in place that allows that to happen.
What's your approach when it comes to like experimenting and recipe development?
It is all about, I don't even know, to be honest with you. Sometimes you'll just come out the brew and I'll just have an idea of like, oh, let's try this. So let me think about that. A lot of times I'm going to start with something very basic, like the base profile, because I want to stay true to style on certain beers. So if I'm trying to stay true to style, I'll definitely do my research. What's the water profile? What mineral profile of the water? What are the typical hops used? What malts that are used? How do I stay true? And then I'll start to add layers to it and say, okay, well, I think this is a great beer, but what about if I add some vanilla? What if I add a fruit? Or what if I add this type of hop, that type of hops? And then that's where I can be creative in the process and then use my creativity to create.
What's your favorite thing to brew?
I love Belgian style of beer. And so I brew a Saison every spring with pears and oak chips and soaked in white wine and Chardonnay. And so that's probably my favorite, I would say.
With this, how do you balance like tradition and innovation?
I balance it by saying, okay, if I want to brew a beer for an event or a certain style, I'm going to stay true to that style. I want to educate somebody on, let's say, a doppelbock, or for Oktoberfest, I might want to do a meat and dumpling. I'm going to stay true to that style. When it comes to everything else, free reign. I'll innovate as much as I possibly can. I'll get crazy with the ideas because I want to try something new.
Now, do you or will you use like local ingredients?
I try to.
Local
It's very hard. Yeah, because we don't really have many local things, but we do local honey. I'll do local honey for the Saison. And then local fruits like muscadine, like that. We don't really have much as far as hops, malt that are locally grown here.
Well, I mean, you could sell the one with honey this time of year by telling everyone it will help them with their Georgia allergies.
Oh, yeah, that's good. Yep. And I mean, yeah, the Georgia allergy or the Georgia pollen is bad.
Yeah.
So it gets really bad here. But I mean, we had some rain, luckily, in the past couple of weeks to help knock it down, but it's going to come back.
Yeah. Now, what role do you see craft beer playing in Augusta's role in economic landscape over time?
Well, so like historically in America, some good, vibrant craft brews ultimately in a lot of tourism. And so I feel like if we can create a scene that will drive people coming in other than that wanting to get to the master, I think that it will help. And then also just having a diverse craft beer scene. I was in Charlotte a couple weeks ago and they have such a vibrant craft beer.
That's where I live.
Yeah, I love it. It's so good up there. And you have these different pockets of different craft breweries all put together and they all do really well. They support each other. But you can see how the diversity of it, the inclusion of it, and the economic contribution it leads to, because things start to grow around that class. They start to build high rises, they start to build parks and all these other things. People want to drink a beer and take a dog out or go out and meet friends over a beer and stuff like that. So it seems that we are able to make that feel to be okay. And it doesn't have to be the Charlotte. It's a big growing city. But I look at cities such as Greenville as a model. The downtown area of Greenville, they've done a really good job at bringing that main street. They tell everybody else to go. So to do that here, I guess. I think you can. It takes time, and then consumption, that they want to make some money.
Yeah. How do you see your role as the first Black brewer in Augusta intersecting with the city's rich history and heritage, particularly as it relates to the African American culture?
Yeah, I think that's something that I have to be mindful of. That this is such an industry that is not big in the Black community, and then Atlanta, Black community, where the you need a, the higher middle class sometimes, and like seeing a lot of bigger things. I think we move a little bit slower here in Augusta.
Mhm.
And so I personally think that it's just being the face first off and allowing myself to be out there and meet people and then getting to know people when I go to the restaurant and bar and they see like, oh, it's another black guys talking with them. They share those stories with their friends and their friends share those stories and then they get interested. And I've had many people come inside the brewery here once that story broke, just looking for me in that sense, like meeting them here. And so it's just the education on saying, well, hey, there is craft beer here in Augusta. You don't have to just go to, your regular liquor store or, bar or whatever. You come to a brewery, the same environment or a better environment, honestly, than a bar. And so that's my goal, is to instill my culture into this industry and through my business and have people comfortable when they come in.
Now, what are some of your favorite things to do in Augusta when you're not in the brewery?
I'm an indoor type of person, but I do love, if I'm not just chilling out reading or something like that, I love to get a that. I draw a lot of inspiration from a walkable swampland where you're able to see all different types of animals and creatures and see out in nature. Just beautiful over there. And so if I had to say my number one thing to do, like, you can go to the swamp and walk around and pick some mushrooms.
That's cool. You said that when you're not indoors reading, what do you like to read?
Oh, what I don't like to read. That's a good question. Anything philosophy based. I love self-help style, especially from an entrepreneur. Anything self-help or business related definitely helps. Yeah, more philosophy based style book.
I collect antique books. So,
okay. Awesome.
Yeah. So I really love that. I just got my oldest book a couple of weeks ago from 1747. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. What is it?
It's called Polite Education by Stephen Philpott. And honestly, it's not like the type of book I would typically read, but it was more because of the age of the book. And I'm like, I've never even touched anything that old. You know what I mean?
I know, that's awesome.
It was really
amazing.
cool.
That's amazing. That's
yeah.
Really
I keep books in the safe.
Oh yeah. You have to.
Yeah.
For those. Those old,
I'm
awesome.
like, threaten everybody in the house. I'm like, don't touch them.
Oh, that's really good. No, that's awesome.
Now, as a brewer, I assume you're very busy during the Masters.
Yeah, we are. I'm going to be really busy, especially because I just launched my own beer. And so I just launched it into the market about 3 weeks ago. And so I'm going to be really busy. Perfect timing. Yes. I just busy though, I think.
Yeah, but, I'm sure.
Yeah. But yeah, perfect timing to have a beer in the market, especially a juicy iced tea. People love those. They're very easy, approachable. IPA is the number one selling beer, but everybody doesn't love IPA. And so to make something a little bit more approachable, I like to try to indoctrinate people into the beer world, especially if they don't drink beer. So I'll try to make something that's easy going for them to drink. And this one is approachable, very juicy, citrusy, tropical note. So I will have a tip out on the Masters, whatever day you want it, it'll be there.
That's exciting.
It is exciting. Yeah. I'll be busy and tired.
It'll be worth it. It will be worth it.
All worth it. Yeah. I look at the Masters as a perfect time for other people looking around the world or the country there, experience Augusta, but then also open my beer.
Absolutely.
It's perfect time.
That's really cool. Now, what do you hope to achieve in your career as a brewer? Do you have some things that, are kind of like in the works that you can talk about right now?
Yeah. So my end goal is to have a brick and mortar brew pub downtown. My bigger dream would be to have multiple brew pubs around, not just in Augusta, but in the Southeast at least. So that's the big picture dream. But the immediate dream goal is a brew pub downtown and then have a second location in Columbia County, which is the county next to ours. And so that's my goal. And I want each brew pub to have their own brew system so that I can hire other brewers in that area to come in and brew their own styles of beer that they like. So you're getting a different experience at each location. We'll have our flagships, of course, but I want to hire people that are passionate about beer, but they might not have the money or the capital or the means to start their own brewery. So, hey, this will be like your brewery. You're the brewmaster here or the head brewer, and put your own self into this business and create beer that you want to create for people to enjoy. And of course, I will make sure that it's quality beer, but I definitely feel like there are people out there that want to do this. I've met with many people that say, oh, my dream is still one day open a brewery or have a brewery of my own. Well, you might not have to have your own brewery, but you can definitely have your own personality into the business itself. So that's the goal.
Now, I've written in another article kind of like the backstory of the name of your company. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So Tap 33 is the name. All right. And I came across the number 33 because Prohibition ended in 1932. So I was like, that's a cool number. I love the number 33 generally. And so I was like, okay, 33 is a good number. Let's see what else I can do with this number. And so I started researching, started looking at different things like around the number 33. I was like, oh, I could go to the metaphysical side of things, or I could do all this other weird stuff. But then I was like, well, I want to make it relate to Augusta. So how can I make this number relate to Augusta? And so I was just thinking, wandering my mind around, and I was like, I wonder where Augusta is located. And I looked on the map, and I was like, oh my goodness, it's located in the 33rd parallel on Earth. And I was like, that's a good connection. And so then I was like, well, all right, that's really cool. How else can I tie it to Augusta? And I literally remember I was at the computer thinking like, James Brown. I was like, I bet he was born in 1933. And I was like, how cool would it be if he was? So I like Google search it, and I was like, oh no, like he was born 1933.
It's
and
meant
so
to
like,
be.
that's perfect. Yeah, it was meant to be. I was like, that's perfect. I got 3 numbers and they're all around 33. And then I was like, okay, well, I got the number. What would I call it? And so I came up with Tap 33 because I wanted people to know that their beer is being made locally, tapped locally, and it's around 33.
I love that. I'm a numbers person.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, it was one of those things where I wanted the name of the company to be approachable to everybody. And so I think sometimes names of things can deflect people because they just don't understand. And it's like, well, I don't really know what that means or like the style of it. So I went with more of a retro style and a vintage style of like naming the company and like how I produced the brand around it because I wanted it to be approachable. And it was funny because I got one of the best compliments from Chris, who is the owner of Creature Comforts, Chris Heron. He saw my logo. He was like, I don't know if I like the logo. You know, like, well, why? He was like, well, it just looks like it's a brand that's like in multiple locations, like it's a franchise brand. And I was like, that's exactly what it is. And he was like, oh, well, then you hit it out the park. It's like, that's the end goal.
He's like, that's what I'm going for.
Yeah. He was like, well, I take it all back. I was like, yeah.
Now, when visitors come to Augusta, where can they find your beer currently?
Yeah, so we are actually locally distributing beer throughout Augusta and local restaurants and bars. So if you go to any bar or restaurant in Augusta that has a draft, we will be on tap there. Mellow Mushroom, Pizza Joint, all the bars downtown will have it. Hotels, some of the hotels that have it. Anything, any major restaurant that has a draft, we're probably tapped there.
When did you start this? What's been the time frame that all of this has happened?
For the distribution or for just like the company itself?
The company itself, going from volunteering to, you know.
So I had the idea. I started the idea. I branded it in 2017. And then thank God I didn't do anything. It was just timing of everything. But COVID happened, obviously, a couple years later, which I counted as a blessing because it allowed me to not have anything out there and then get shut down for a period of time. And so I looked at it as just staying patient and keeping my focus on what I really want to do. So started the brand in 2017, but nothing really happened there. I started going after investors and I did get some. Then COVID happens. I lose my investors. But they're just like, this is too volatile to want to put money into. And I was like, I completely understand. And then after that, I started volunteering for Savannah River, and I came on here in 2021, somewhere around that time frame to work. But when I came, they already knew what I wanted to do. Like they know my end goal. And so I've been working here, just putting in my time and waiting for an opportunity to arrive that I can be like, okay, I'm ready. And the funny thing about the beer that I just launched, the Googly Moogly, is that I had been working on that recipe for years and I had never got it right. Like I never got it to where I wanted it. And this past fall, in October, I did an event in Atlanta called the Blacktoberfest. It was the first annual Oktoberfest of shouting out Black brewers, Black brewery owners. And it was just a day for Black excellence as far as in the craft beer world. So I got an offer to be a part of that. And I had to come up with some beer for it. And I was like, well, I'm going to work on my juicy IPA recipe for this event. The one that I made for this event is the one that's in the market now. And it was the last time that I made it where I was like, all right, here it goes. I haven't made it the way I want it to yet, but I'll make this one. I made it and I was like, this is exactly what I wanted it to be. It came out perfectly. So that's the recipe. But I made it for an event where I was like, well, I guess we'll see how this turns out. But it turned out really well. And I use that recipe now. It's my main flagship recipe that is now out in the market.
Well, really, your journey has been, it's all kind of unfolded very quickly, you know?
Yeah, especially over the last year. Yeah. But it's been a very patient process. But over the last year, yeah, it's been really bad.
It tells me it's just going to continue to get busier for you, which is not a bad thing.
Yeah, I hope so.
Now, where can our listeners find you online on social media?
I am at Tapped33, TAPPED 33 on Instagram. And I have a Twitter, but I don't ever use Twitter. So just hit me up on Instagram and Facebook.
And I'll make sure to link to those in the notes of this episode. So I ask every guest this. Do you have a favorite quote or any words of wisdom that you want to leave behind with our listeners?
So I came up with a quote that I live by, and it was actually off of giving advice to a friend. And it's something that I gave the advice and I made the quote and I didn't even realize how powerful or impactful it was. But basically they were going through some things and they were really just hesitant about how to move and what they wanted to do in life. And they were really just feel scared. And I was like, if the world were to end, would you do it? And they were like, yeah, I would do it. If I knew the world was going to end tomorrow, I would do it. And I was like, do it again until the world ends. And so for me, that was my mantra of just continuing to do something until the world stops, because you live your life in that way of thinking like tomorrow might be the last day. I would regret to not do this today. Then definitely go after it. And so I would tell people, hey, the world were to end, do it again until the world ends.
Oh, I love that. I really appreciate you taking the time to meet with me today. I know that you're super busy and I think that you're incredibly inspiring. And I know that you have a lot of really amazing things ahead of you.
Oh, I appreciate that. I hope so. Keep trying. Keep working at it. So I thank you for everything else. I definitely appreciate the opportunity to talk with you and just thank you for reaching out.